Yeah. So this is called Auguries of Innocence. So Auguries, what do you think is the singular form? Yes, it's one augury. Yeah. So it is like, augury is like a sign or a symbol, right? So it's like symbols or signs of innocence. Yeah. So Blake, here you can see the time period which you don't have to remember, right? So he was not only a poet, that is the most important thing. These people were very versatile. They were writing, they were painting, right? Yeah, like that. So, and also kind of a visionary thinker. What do you mean by being visionary, Reverend?
Realistic.
Yeah, in a way, Reverend, it is like one who can envision future, something like that.
Prediction.
Yeah, kind of predicting. Yeah, making predictions, and also it's not like something, supernatural or something like that, but kind of envisioning future in a philosophical manner, right? Someone who can see far, something like that. Yes. Yeah. Not with kind of, mystical powers or anything, but in kind of a deeply philosophical sense, right? Yeah. So yeah, so there are these profound, right, immensely significant, very much significant philosophical and spiritual ideas, right? They were very philosophical but also spiritual. And here spiritual we refer to, their own religion, and also kind of beyond religion as well, not restricting to the church at all. So they were questioning the church, but they were believing in all these, this spiritual element in Christianity, right? True essence of Christianity. Yeah. So this one, Auguries of Innocence, is one of his most enigmatic. So there you can see a series of paradoxes. You know what are paradoxes, right? Contrasting ideas, yeah. Different ideas put together. Yeah, contrasting ideas. And aphorisms, that means it's like, very short, brief, witty statements, very wise statements, wise sayings. Short, wise statements. Sayings, I would say. Witty sayings or intellectual sayings. Is that clear, Reverend? Witty statements, right? Okay. So they kind of revealed or unraveled moral or spiritual truths. Moral, right? About morality, about goodness, good behavior, good conduct, and also spiritual truths about human existence and the natural world. Because we know up to now human existence is not given very much value, right? Because of industrialization, urbanization, people were used as hands, right? Just as aids. We discussed about this thing called reification, can you remember? Last semester, and even I think last week we discussed that there is this idea by Karl Marx. Reification means human beings treated as just laborers, just as hands. He used this word hands, right? So kind of they are ripped out of their humanity. Their humanity is disregarded. But here he is kind of giving this importance to human existence and also natural world, something which was also disregarded. So written around 1803, so that was the year this was written, but then this was published how? Posthumously. That means appearing after the death of the creator. Reverence. Published after Blake's death. So such things happen. So even this one was published after his death, right? Yeah. and in 1863, so after a long time actually, right? Yeah. So this reflects Blake's romantic ethos. Ethos means characteristic spirit. Ethos, like the most important feature, characteristic feature. It's like, these restaurants have their signature dishes, right? The one kind of, which shows their identity, something like that. Just like a signature spirit or characteristic, or the characteristic feature. And yes, and also his deep engagement with issues of justice, because this was not a time where justice prevailed. That's why child labor was there, right? Justice was not there. And morality is anywhere not there when child abuse is happening, right? And human perception, how humans kind of perceive the world, how they see the world. So that was kind of given importance. And as you said, free will was given importance. And in this poem, you can see juxtaposition. Can you remember juxtaposition, Reverence? That means, yeah, balancing two contrasting things, right? So two contrasting things are kind of put together. Innocence and experience, right? That innocence is on one end and the experience on the other hand, right? On the other end. But then those two are kind of put together, right? Yeah. And contrasting purity, right? Being pure, and also virtue, right? Moral excellence. And then divine perception, divinity, right? So being closer to kind of divine, right? Yeah. And then also yeah, cruelty, corruption, and moral decay, all these three are contrasted with what? With cruelty, right? Purity is contrasted or juxtaposed with cruelty, right? And then after cruelty, corruption, right? Yeah. So virtue and corruption, as same as purity and cruelty, and then virtue and corruption. And also divine perception, and then moral excellence with moral decay, right? Moral degradation. Yeah. So, and also we need to remember that his language is very much metaphoric, right? A lot of metaphors are there, very symbolic. We need to understand the poem through these symbols, but they're very easy, kind of very, simple symbols, but very metaphoric, right? Not direct at all. And then complex symbolism is there in songs of experience, but here what you get is very simple day-to-day symbols, right? And then Blake critiques social injustices and also highlights the interconnectedness of all life, right? So we know that life is interconnected, right? That's why all this law of attraction is all about. Are you kind of fans of law of attraction? Not fans, but you are aware of those, right? Law of attraction, all these theories that universe, there's this balance, right? When you do good and when you kind of ask something from the universe, that universe will kind of conspire to give that back to you, something like that, right? And also this person called Tesla, right? So Tesla also kind of discusses about all these universal elements, even about this 11.11, right? So there was all these kind of commotion about 11.11, the last kind of, during November. November 11th is considered one of the most powerful days in the universe, right? So all this, 11, and also there are some other numbers, right? So they are called angel numbers. So they resonate with power, and all these ideas are there. And if you want to chase the dog away kind of in a kind manner, that you can do, right? I don't mind. If you want, you can do so if it is difficult for you. Once I tried to feed him a yogurt and then he started coughing, I told you, right? I got afraid. I thought he's going to die. He loves to learn literature. Because Blake mentions the dog as well. How we should kind of be kind to dogs and all. Maybe that's why he was here to listen to that part. Right, and then we will kind of do a line by line analysis of this poem. We will go through kind of line by line. We won't be able to finish it, but then we will just move. Right, okay. So then the first line, if you want kind of few minutes to read this one, I will give you some time, Reverence. What do you think? Is it better to kind of read it? To kind of have an idea? I think we have. Once you finish, let me know, Reverence. You don't have to understand all the words, right? When there are, the words that you don't know, you can just kind of read them, guessing the meaning. Finished, Reverence, right? Okay. Yeah, so then we will kind of go through this. And what did you understand from the poem? Yeah, so I don't need a kind of a detailed analysis. I understand that you are just after the vacation, after chilling, right? Not chilling. Yeah, it is about nature, about human nature and also nature. Yes. Yeah. Okay, so we will kind of, go through a line by line analysis, right? Okay. So the first one, to see a world in a grain of sand. And you can see that capitalization is bit odd as well, right? World is capitalized, right? Grain and sand, all those are capitalized. Why? Because they are kind of given importance, right? It is not grammatical, yeah, but again, that's how he has kind of purposely written it. So that means to see the entire world, right? If you want, you can write kind of that. So the entire world in something so tiny, right? Something very little. When you say grain of sand, right? Something very little. Just a little peck of sand, right? Seeing the world in it. So here, in a way, what do you think sand represents?
Human.
In a way, yes, Reverend, good guess. And also grain of sand. Yeah, you can say that you can see the whole world within one human being, yes. And also when you say sand, it in a way can refer to the earth, right? Yeah. So you can see the entire world in something so little or something so tiny. That is the idea, right? Yeah. So that means the interconnectedness again. And I don't know whether Reverend Susitha remembers this person called Mahinda Massimbula. He wrote a book called Hiruth Himapiyallaka. So again the same idea, right? So the sun in kind of a drop of snow, right? And also there's this idea Sanda Pini Bindaka. So that means reverence moon in a drop of dew, right? So something like that. Seeing very large things in smaller beings, like that. And then a heaven in a wild flower. Again the same idea, right? So heaven is like, the sublime, the most kind of celebrated spiritual, right? Yeah, arena. So that in a wildflower, right? Heaven in a wildflower. Again, you can see the kind of the importance they have given to what? Nature, right? Seen heaven, which is like something not realistic or something far-fetched, something that you cannot kind of touch in a wildflower. So it's like you can see the beauty of life in kind of the smallest things without going far, right? Something like that, without evading the reality. Yes. So it's like the vast and minute. You know the meaning of minute, right? The little, right? So the vast and minute are interconnected. Let me write minute here. It's just like minute. So the vast and minute. The largest and the smallest. The interconnection is highlighted here. Right. And then hold infinity in the palm of your hand. Infinity means, right? Boundlessness, endlessness, that on the palm of your hand. So again, what can you see? Kind of humanism reverence, right? So how humans are given importance. And also addressing you, right? So when I read this, I feel it is directed to me. And when you read it, you think it is directed to you. So that is another technique, right? Addressing the reader, right? Yeah, you may highlight it if you want, because your hand, addressing the kind of the direct connection with the reader. So like the smallest things kind of holding universe in them, something like that. And then eternity in an hour. Again you can see, right, the contrast. Eternity, right, the timelessness in an hour. So that means in this very moment you can find the universe or the universal power or the happiness or the beauty, the infinite, endlessness, the unending duration within a duration, within this moment, kind of within an hour. Right. And what is the rhyme scheme that you see here, Reverence, when you say to see a world in a grain of sand? And
first four line is
Abby. Yes.
But after that, sensitive.
Yeah, you can see AB throughout, Reverence. It's like rhyming couplets, right? You have heard of couplets, right? Yeah, rhyming couplets. So sand resonates with hand, flower with our, cage and rage, right? Pigeons and regions. And after in the first one you can see AB throughout, and then you have what? Cage and rage. Yeah, A together, right? And then pigeons and regions, gate and state, road and blood. Likewise, you can see rhyme in couplets. Yeah. And yes, a robin redbreast in a cage. Have you seen robins? These tiny little birds. Shall I send you a picture? So then it is kind of, When I type Robin, what I get is Robin Hood. Yeah, Robin Bird. You may Google, yes, European Robin reverence, right? Yeah. So this one. So here you can see how tiny this bird is, right? Very small. So this robin redbreast in a cage, and these birds are kind of identified as pet birds, right? So they are caged, right? For the joy of human beings, for the joy of people, right? So that is criticized here. A robin redbreast in a cage. So that suggests what? Caged bird, kind of loss of freedom, I would say. A symbol. It is a symbol for loss of freedom, losing freedom. And then what is the next line? Yes, puts all heaven in a rage. So that means when a kind of tiny bird, even a tiny bird is caged, right? When this tiny bird loses its freedom, it provokes what? Divine anger, right? Yeah. Heaven in a rage. Rage means, anger. Yeah. Puts all heaven in a rage. So it provokes divine anger. Right. And then yeah, so it's like there's this idea that cruelty towards creatures disrupts what? Divine harmony, right? And also kind of cosmic harmony. Cosmic, right? Again, kind of universal, referring to universe. And then you can say the balance, right? Spiritual balance. It harms the spiritual balance. Yes. And again, you can see that this was a time where kind of these birds were caged, and more than that, as I earlier said, hunted. So this is like a response to that. Yeah. And then a dove house filled with doves and pigeons. You know doves, right? If not, you may just Google. These doves are always kind of, they are resonated with purity because of their color and all, right? Doves and pigeons. Shudders hell the all its regions, right? So here it's like it is kind of an archaic word for through, right? Through all its regions. Evokes moral unrest, right? So morally kind of unrest is kind of evoking when nature is violated. Okay, so yeah, doves in a way symbolize kind of peace and purity. And dove house, what do you mean? Dove house means even in Sri Lanka we have a lot. Dove house. So doves are kind of yeah, they are kind of not imprisoned, but they are caged in a way. We call them dove houses, right? So just for pleasure, right? All these little boys, they do this. I've seen in some areas. So they have this flock of doves, right? And also pigeons. And there's this nice Kerala movie, Malayalam movie called Parava, right? It is about these doves. I think the word for doves, I think they are using Parava. So there's this movie. Yeah. So evokes moral unrest, shudders hell through all its regions. And not just, not just a region, all the regions, right? This moral unrest happens. Yeah. And then here, this one is the line that I told you about the dog. A dog starved at his master's gate. And also here you can notice some, unfamiliar words. Starved, E is missing, right? Starved, the proper word should be with E. Starved at his master's gate. So that means, is it kind of an idle dog, a street dog, or belonging to the master? The master's dog, right? So he's not feeding, the master is not feeding the dog. So have you seen when they have all these, dogs, when they are cute and fluffy and good, right? So they feed and they look after them so well. And when they are sick and old, they just chase these dogs away. So that happens, right? So he's criticizing this, right? A dog starved at his master's gate, not fed. So starvation and abuse of animals, that is criticized. And predicts the ruin of the state. What do you think is the idea here? Ruin of the state. A dog starved at his master's gate seems something kind of, common or not common actually. It's like something very simple, right? Not something very large and not affecting a state, right? Dogs, right? When you say kind of the ruin of the state, how does he weave that, right? So that idea is there. When you say a dog is starved, simply kind of, seemingly a simple action, right? Not much kind of, with an effect, but it can predict the ruin of the state. That means even tiny things, tiny cruelties, right? Tiny cruelties can bring large systematic disruptions, right? It's like about the balance again, right? How these tiny acts of cruelty. Yes. Is that clear, reverence? Yeah. Up to now, are there any questions? Any issue, Reverend Susita? Feel free to let me know if there are any issues. Mm. All its regions, Reverend. It's like, evokes again divine anger, right? Not just one region of, the hell, right? Shudders hell. It's like, that as much as heaven and hell, right? So heaven and hell all are kind of, controlled by divine figures, right? Even in Buddhism, we have this Yama, who is like a god, right? The god Yama, they say, right? It's not a demon in a way, a demon in a form of kind of a god. Likewise, shudders hell through all its regions. When these doves, right, who symbolize peace and purity, right, they are kind of imprisoned. They are not free, right? It kind of shudders even the hell, right? Even the hell is kind of horrified, right? And also there's this idea that all these people will get this divine punishment, they will be sent to hell, right? That idea is also there. Right. And then what is the next line? Misused. Yes, E is missing again. Yeah. So that's how those were written, reverence, right? That is how the poem appears. Right? Yeah. Yeah, misused upon the road, right? This was the time of all these horse rides, right? All these carts were there, right? Yeah. So horse misused upon the road calls to heaven for human blood. Again about divine anger, right? Earlier it was hell, now heaven for what? Human blood, right? Yeah. So again you can see how heaven and hell are kind of given, right? As concepts, So, misused upon the road, that means, like social or larger corruption begins with small injustices. So, seemingly small law, simple law, right? Not kind of very important injustices, right? Not kind of given much importance. A horse misused upon the road calls to heaven for human blood, again provokes divine anger. Human blood, even asking for human blood. That means it is, in a way, don't you think it resonates with karma? Right? In a way, yes, right? I don't know whether he knew karma or not. We have to meet him and ask whether he knew Buddhism. But again, there's this kind of a slight line. Maybe you can do a research paper, right? About how you can see karma, the concept of karma in Blake's poems, right? Yeah. Because here, because the horse is kind of, horse is uh, forced to this injustice, right? And then that would ask for human blood. So the heaven would ask for human blood because of that action, right? And then what is the next one? Mm. That means a form of a rabbit. If you want, you may Google and see form of a rabbit, and kind of a very innocent creature, right? Yeah. And hunted. So I was referring to this, right? So hunting happened during this time. So there's this direct response, a fiber from the brain does tear. So here, symbolically, fiber from the brain means how, it affects this universal fabric, Reverend, right? So brain is like this, there's this universal fabric, and now there is a breach in it. Breach means, the breaking, right? So these moral fibers, right? Fibers, right? Fibers in food, likewise fibers, small minute things, minute stuff, right? So those are broken when you say a fiber from the brain does tear, right? When all these rabbits are hunted, so universal fabric of morality is breached, right? That happens. Yeah. And then skylark, if you want, you can search for the skylark. Oh, let me send a picture. So skylark is identified as a symbol for joy, happiness, and also innocence. Again, this very, very little birds. Let me send an image. Yes. So I have sent it. And I think he has kind of purposely selected all these little birds, right? Not kind of very larger animals or birds, not a kind of a crow, right? So kind of comparatively larger, right? Yeah. And then wounded in the wing again refers to hunting, right? Yeah. So when it is wounded, that means kind of earthly suffering, right? Suffering which happens on the earth. A cherubim. Who is a cherubim? Can you remember? I cannot remember whether it was with you that I discussed this. These little cute angels, almost like kids, baby angels, right? Cherubims. Let me send you cherubim angels. Powerful angels, right? With wings. So here it is not with reference to these larger ones that you see. Let me send this cute one. These little ones. So it is kind of, there's this idea that they always sing, right? And then what happens? They cease to sing. That means they stop singing. So these are like these little cute winged creatures, right? Small angels. Yeah. So cherubim does cease to sing. They stop singing. So it's like, how earthly suffering affects heaven. So these are in the heaven. As in, that it is imagine that they are in heaven. So it affects kind of heavenly realm or divinity, right? Heaven is affected. And then the gamecock. What do you think this refers to? Gamecock. Even now we have in kind of some primitive areas gamecock. Cock refers, cock, right? And then gamecock means there's this idea that there was this practice of sending cocks to game, right? Right? People were kind of, it was a form of a game, right? Cocks were actually kind of used like that. Gamecock. It's like cockfighting, practice of cockfighting, and humans are the people who get benefited by those cockfighting, right? So let's say I have a cock and Reverend Nandasiri has a cock, right? So then both are fighting, right? And we have kind of put a monetary value to our cocks, right? So then the one who wins, right, so gets all this money. So like that. So you can see how extremely cruel that is, right? For our monetary gains or for our pleasure, right, we are using animals. That happened during that period, right? Even now there's this bullfighting, right, in Spain, Spanish bullfighting, that happens, and people die as well, right, during this bullfighting. Yeah. Okay. And then where were we? The gamecock, clipped and armed for fight. Again you can see spellings, right? E is missing in all these instances. Clipped and armed for fight. So they are, their arms are clipped, right? Arms means wings, right? Their wings are clipped and they are sent to fight, right? Does the rising sun affright? Affright, what do you think that means? It comes from the word fright. Even the sun is frightened. Yes, sun is frightened. That means with this action of, in a way, this is moral degradation, right? How kind of, animals are used. So this extreme cruelty makes the nature frightened, right? Even the rising sun is considered like one of the most powerful aspects of nature. Even sun is terrified, right, petrified of this act. Yes. And then what is the next line? Howl, yes. Raises from hell a human soul, right? Yeah. And here you can say hunted animals' voices, right? And you know that usually wolf and lion, are they strong animals or weak animals? Strong animals, but even they are hunted, right, by human beings. It was primarily for pleasure, on one hand for meat, but when lions and wolves were considered, to show they are kind of, to show that they are heroes, that we can kind of hunt heroes, something like that, primarily for nothing. So howl means, that crying in pain. When animals cry in pain, animals howl, right? Something like that, a very kind of a loud cry. Raises from hell a human soul. That means it disturbs nature, right? Moral decay. Raises from hell a human soul. So howl and soul, they are resonated with the rhyme scheme. Even hell is affected. And then who is there? The next symbol is the wild deer. What do you think it stands for? Wild tear, contrasting with lion.
with
Yeah, weak, Reverend, and also weak, very innocent, right? And also vulnerable, right? Cannot fight against anything. Yes. The wild here, wandering here and there, is just, walking here and there without causing harm to anyone, right? Yeah. So, keeps the human soul from care. So that means when you sustain those animals, right? When you do not harm those innocent animals, what happens to you? Keeps the human soul from care. That means it protects human spirituality. The soul is protected. Again, like karma, right? How, it's like, this reminds me of the first two verses of Dhammapada. This Chayavana and Shakkanga Mahatapala, something like that, right? Maybe he didn't know, but yeah, right? We can draw the connection. Yes. And next on the lamb. Again, lamb, who do you think lamb represents? Yes, Reverend? Not really. In a way, innocence, and also as a person, kind of, lamp.
intelligent person.
In a way, right? So it is associated here, lamp, right? Lamp. So it's like, Christ like. When you say Christ like, it is like Christ was also like, he was also talking about, the goodness, right? And the love and all, right? So because of that, misused breeds public strife. So when lamb, who represents Jesus Christ, is exploited, right? Or else killed, misused, also has that idea, right? Killed. What happens? Yet forgives the what? Yes, the butcher's knife. That means, what does that mean? So it's like, that how Jesus Christ forgave all these people, right? So like divine forgiveness. That means even though the nature is harmed, the nature forgives us. Nature has that divine power, but only to an extent, right? All this karmic stuff, all these are there, right? But then it says forgives it. So that means reflects the potential for redemption. You know what redemption means, right? Kind of being saved from sin. Yeah, kind of in a way salvation driven, but again being kind of, forgiven for your sins, something like that. Redemption, specifically in Christianity, even though we kind of resonate it with salvation, for them it is like, kind of being forgiven for their sins. Yeah. So Buddhism doesn't have something like that, right? So if you have conducted a sin, you are done for. Yeah.
But we use Kayana Vajati. That's also
Yeah, in a way, right, Reverend? But again, it is not like, that when you do all these, there are these, except ahosi karma, I think the other karmas, right? So because of that, I think that is good in a way, because this seems kind of absurd. And even Hinduism, right? When you go and take a bath in this river of Ganga, your sins are washed away, something absurd, right? So that's why Buddhism is like, Buddhism resonates with this universal balance, right? That's why people say it is kind of very scientific, right? Yeah. And the bat that flits at close of eve, right? The bat, who is a bat, so associated with day or night. When you say bat, night, right? Yeah, kind of a nocturnal creature, right? That flits at close of eve. Eve means evening, right? Yeah. And then we have another one, has left the brain that won't believe. Won't believe means in doubt, right? So all these night creatures, nocturnal creatures are associated with the darkness, doubt, sadness, right? That. So both bat and owl. In the next one, in the next line, you get owl. Again associated with day or night. Night, right? Yeah, nocturnal creatures. So they call upon the night, speaks the unbeliever's fright. Here, unbeliever means the person who kind of does not believe in a religion. There were people like that during this time, right? I told you about rationalism, enlightenment. So enlightenment was not kind of something like in Buddhism, right? Something so deep. It is just like it resonates with science and reason, all these things. So Blake was kind of against that. That's why he says unbelievers fright. So those who don't believe in a religion, that means their religion Christianity, right? So they are always in fright, fear, and then won't believe means kind of they do not believe and they have all these doubts, like that.
In a way, I think that eliminating means
Hmm.
someone who found all the reason for everything.
Yeah.
Like that. I think.
In a way, enlightenment, it was like this reverend, there were these people, thinkers as well, right? So but those people, they didn't identify enlightenment as something spiritual, right? Enlightenment means kind of resonating with reason and science. Yeah, as you said, kind of finding kind of reasons for everything. There is a reason behind everything. But what happened was, with that, emotions were neglected, because some of our emotions are not coming out of logic always, right? Even our consideration for beauty or nature or love, even kindness, right? So those people were like that. All those things you do not align with reason or logic or science. So this was kind of a response for that. So they were rejecting this scientific enlightenment, right? So that's why darkness is identified with that. Even though we see that enlightenment is something that should be kind of associated with light, right? But here what happens is the other way around, right? Darkness with scientific reason. Yeah. Is that clear, Reverend? Yeah. And then he who shall hurt the little wren. So let me show you wren as well. The little wren. So the Wren and Martin book is coming when I search for this bird. Yeah, again a very little bird. So there's this, yeah, wren. So he who shall hurt the little wren shall never be beloved by men. So that means hurting a harmless little creature like this, little wren, right? So that person will never be loved by men. That means you won't receive the love of your fellow brothers and sisters, fellow human beings. That idea is there. So it would kind of alienate him, right? It would make him kind of friendless almost. Yeah. Won't be loved. So you won't receive any love if you have this moral decay, something like that. Yes. Then next one, he who the ox to wrath has moved shall never be by woman loved. Ox, right? Yeah. So then oxes are very helpful for what? Oxen? Farming, right? So that means they are very strong and also they are used for labor. That means very helpful animals to human beings. So if you hurt an ox, that is kind of a crime, right? So that's what he means. So cruelty towards animals, right? So then what would happen? It would alienate this person from love and affection. So if you hurt, so he is kind of saying to these people, right? If you hurt an ox, then you won't be loved by a woman. You won't receive true love. So that idea. And then the wanton boy that kills the fly. So a boy is kind of, thoughtlessly, right, for pleasure, kills this fly. Again, fly, right, this very, very small insect. And then shall feel the spider's enmity. Again, kind of resonating with karma, right, karmic response. So if you kind of, I would say, for your joy, if you kill a harmless little animal, what would happen? An insect, right? Then you will feel the spider's enmity. So in a kind of a next birth, right, you will be kind of caught in or ensnared in a spider's net, right? That idea. So even the smallest creature deserves compassion. That is the idea. It is about compassion and respect. And then he who torments the chaffer's sprite. Chafers, again, let me show you chaffer.
Maybe
Kind of an
zoologist, maybe.
can be, Reverend. So, yes. So, this is an insect. We call it chaffer beetle actually. Yeah, so here it is. Do you have phobias for cockroaches and stuff? No, right? I'm going to share an image. My mother has that phobia for cockroaches. They say that all the women are afraid of cockroaches, right? So because of that very idea, because I wanted to break that stereotype, I'm not afraid of cockroaches. Yeah. So okay. So then yes. So then Schaefer's a sprite, right? Did I send the name with this? No, right? Schaefer. It's a Schaefer beetle. So these are very insignificant creatures, reverence, right? So I think what he wanted to convey is even these very insignificant, unseen, almost unseen creatures deserve love and compassion. That's what he wanted to say. And yeah, so Chafer's sprite weaves a bower in endless night. So that means, darkness, darkness will come, right? Again, it resonates with karma in a way, right? Bower in endless night. It's bower kind of like, a shady place, right? Yeah. In endless night. And also endless night, what do you think endless night refers to? Night refers to darkness. Yeah, darkness, and endless darkness. It's like endless suffering. Yeah, like hell, Reverend. Yes, endless night, darkness of suffering. And then the caterpillar on the leaf. Caterpillar, again, it's very, innocence, right? Yeah, symbol of innocence. And also kind of defenseless, reverence, caterpillar. More than all the other creatures, it is defenseless. It cannot defend itself, right? Yeah. So also fragile. So caterpillar on the leaf repeats to thee thy mother's grief. And also in a way, it is like the caterpillar is in like a womb, right? Literally, right? So refers to thee thy mother's grief. It's like hurting a caterpillar should remind you of your mother's grief, right? It's like that. Maybe kind of can be referring to birth, or else can be referring to the physical suffering or mental suffering of your own mother. So hurting a caterpillar is like hurting your own mother. Yeah, something like that. In a way, not even kind of directly, but this Attupanayika, right? Yeah, you should kind of refer to yourself, something like that in a way, even though not directly related. Again, so there's this idea, kill not the moth nor butterfly, right? So don't even kill a moth, right? These very little insects, moths and butterflies, don't kill them. Why? Because the last judgment, that means divine judgment, right? Divine judgment, divine accountability draweth nigh, that means you will be judged for all these, right? Every act, every human act will be judged. That is the idea. Yes. And then he who shall train the horse to war. Yeah. Did I tell you about this drought? Here you can say archaic language, right? Drought near, not near. Drought nigh. Nigh means almost. Almost it is near. Drought nigh. Yeah. And then he who shall train the horse to war. So, what actually is a war, Reverend? Is that something kind of resonating to nature, or is it largely about humans? Any question, Reverends? But the previous line?
Almost near.
Yeah, almost, almost. Nigh means almost. Yeah. Drought is kind of, an example for archaic language. Drought. You can see the language. And E is missing of most past tense verbs, right? And he who shall train the horse to war. So, war is kind of, in a way, an exploitation of nature and balance, right? People are fighting with each other. Yeah, for kind of political boundaries or something like that. So, that does not resonate with nature. So then, shall never pass the polar bar. So here, polar bar is a symbol for this gateway of heaven, right? Like a gateway. Yeah. And then, so there's this idea that there will be no salvation for them if they do that, right? Yeah. You won't be able to pass the polar bar, something like that. It almost sounds like polar bear, right? Yeah. So that means when you engage in war, right? Yeah, you won't be able to go to heaven, something like that. So this can be kind of, very I would say very modern and also very risky, because this was a time of wars, right? So the war heroes were there, but he identifies war as something that blocks you from entering heaven, right? Yeah. And then the beggar's dog and widow's cat. So when we consider beggar and widow, who are they? Kind of beggar, widow. What is the similarity between them, Reverence? Widow means the woman whose husband has died recently. Yeah.
Homeless man.
Kind of, in a way, Reverend. Yes. So, yeah, widows can be homeless or not, but beggars are obviously homeless, right? And during this time, widows and women were not very independent. So, as you said, yeah, can be homeless, right? Yeah. And then, and also kind of helplessness, right? Beggars, yeah, beggars and widows. And who accompany these helpless people, helpless human beings? Beggar's dog and widow's cat, right? So dogs and cats are identified as companions of human beings, right? Specifically helping those who need help, right? Those who are helpless, providing them company, right? Yeah, companionship of animals, and also kind of comforting the marginalized people. Both beggars and, widows, they are marginalized in a way. Yeah. And feed them and thou will grow Fat. So here grow fat means becoming fatter, right? So, we becoming kind of fatter after the vacation, after stuffing all the food. That happened with you as well. I think that has happened with me. Okay. So then not growing fat like that, right? So that means growing fat means you will be spiritually rewarded. Yeah, something like that. You will be rewarded spiritually. Feed them. So when you feed all these, your companions, as in human companions like dogs and cats, and specifically those who belong to these helpless people, you will grow fat again, karma. And thou, you can see archaic words, wilt, right? Wilt for will. But you can see it's not like very, I would say, in an archaic way throughout, right? Here and there you find archaic words, right? Not very organized, I would say, right? I'm not saying it as kind of like a weakness, right? It is not a weakness of this poet, but that's how the language was during that time, and this is one of the early works, right? So, and also, can you remember that I told you that they did not want to conform to all these structures, as in following archaic words throughout. They did not want to kind of express their feelings like that, just expressing their feelings, right? Yeah. And then the gnat that sings his summer song. Let me show you an image of gnat as well. So we have only 10 minutes more. So this is gnat. In a way, kind of a mosquito, Reverend. A form of a mosquito, not exactly the mosquitoes that you come across here. This one. But anyway, blood sucking, right? Just like mosquitoes. When you say blood sucking vampires, yeah. And so that's how kind of vampire stories were created as well, something additional because of these blood sucking creatures. There was this kind of a bat called vampire bat, a blood sucking bird, and then that's how all this literature, Dracula and all these things came into being. Have you read Dracula? Yeah, there's this novel. There are movies, but none of the movies can surpass that book, which is written by Bram Stoker. So that novel, it's like it's. I was petrified. I was a kid when I read it. I was around 10 years old, and I followed my mother to everywhere after reading that book because I saw vampires here and there. It is like that. It's very kind of a beautiful book, though. Right, okay. And then, yes, the gnat that sings his summer song. So, you know that summer song, summer is associated with what? With kind of, yes, Reverend? Happiness? Yeah. In a way, summer is usually it is a symbol of joy, right? Yeah, joy, and also in a way vitality, right? Yeah, summer, joy and vitality. Yes. So then summer song. So the gnat that sings his summer song. So gnat is singing his song, and also personified, right? Not it's his. His means this gnat is personified, given human qualities. And poison gets from slander's tongue, right? So here poison gets from slander's tongue. Here slander's tongue means misuse of words, just like what we have in Buddhism, pisuna vacha, musavada, all these, right? That means misuse of words, verbal misconduct. Yeah. So what happens is poison gets from slander's tongue. So it's like that gnat is someone who sucks blood out, right? Kind of, not poisonous, but doing harm. So here Blake says when you use all these words in kind of a negative manner, or when you misuse words, right, what happens? It is like the gnat's summer song, right? Even though summer song supposed to be something joyful, it is sung by whom? Gnat, a blood-sucking creature, right? So then it is not pleasant. Something like that. Even though as a human being you use words, if they are not pleasant, right, if they are negative, then it is like the gnat's summer song, right? Yeah. And then the poison of the snake and newt, right? So it is like, the poison and venom of these poisonous creatures is the sweat of envy's foot. Sweat, right? Sweat of envy's foot. Again, what has happened to envy here? Personified. Envy, the feeling of jealousy. Oh, envy has a foot. It's almost like envy is a person and then he has a foot. So it's like, envy's foot, metaphor and also personification. Envy's foot, sweat from envy's foot. So that means envy is equated to the poison of all these poisonous creatures, like snake and newt. Right. So then we will finish here, Reverend. So then we have to start with the poison of the honeybee from that part. And we have a lecture this Friday, right? Next one. Yeah. Yes. 10:30 to 11:30. And that's not much time, 1 hour, but we will be able to finish this.